Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel.
Hey, young Russell, you made this?
Today I'm going to be throwing some curls in my hair just to kind of keep myself up, because sometimes when you're recovering and you look crazy, you feel crazy. So I like to just try to get dressed up a little bit so that I feel more normal, kind of getting back into the flow of things. So in the last video, I had come down with the flu and I recovered, and then at that time that it was posting, my husband got the flu. So I've been taking care of him for the last couple of days. The boys have been home from school because of the holiday, and now the last 2 days it's so cold that they don't have school. So it's just been me and the boys here. I filmed this video and I figured I would give you guys kind of talk about something that a lot of people ask me, like how I feel now after going through what I went through as a child, going through foster care, going through physical, mental, sexual abuse, and knowing how I got through those things and how my life is now. So stay tuned. So one thing to start with, I was very young, so I know that a lot of the abuse that I had went through as a kid was starting very, very early on, but the earliest I can remember is around, like, I'm gonna say like 4, but it's kind of hard to really tell, because I feel like when you have like different kinds of trauma, I feel like your memory, my memory is not great. And I don't know if, like I said in the previous video, I don't know if it's like a trauma response to the abuse that I had growing up in that environment, or if it was like somewhat foster care related, or maybe a combination of everything. But I've always really struggled with my memory, and it's never been intentional. It's just always just been the case, and it was always kind of embarrassing, because I remember when I worked at one of the chiropractic offices, one of my bosses said, like, she said something like, oh, like, we get 2 different kinds of Melissa. We get the Melissa that's on top of things, and we get the Melissa that is not as good. And I'll never forget it, because that's kind of how it is. And I don't understand that. And it's not that, like, good as in, like, good and bad as in, like, bad person. But it was just, like, there's some times where I am, like, I can be really on top of things, and then times where things just fall through the cracks. And it's never intentional. But I feel like with my memory and the way that my brain works, like, I feel like I just get overwhelmed sometimes, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can to show up for everyone and everything, and it's just not always possible. So I know that, like, with my memory, I don't know sometimes what is the reasoning behind it, if that makes sense. I kind of just do, like, the best that I can. So when it comes to my foster care experience, a lot of people have asked me, like, have I healed? Like, how do I deal with it? Like, what's the, like, what's that like? Nobody knew trauma then the way that we know trauma now. And so we can only work with what we know. But the biggest thing my parents still did was allow me the space to speak on it and do what I need to do in my own time. So I never got really, like, pressured from them to speak on the abuse. I didn't even tell anybody until I was 16 what I had gone through as a child, and what, I just remember being a teenager in church, and the pastors were doing, like, the purity rings and talking about staying pure until you're married, like, the whole thing. And I just remember, like, wanting to cry and feeling guilt and shame and dirty and unwanted, and like, standing up there in church accepting this purity ring, feeling like I wasn't pure. And it was such a traumatic feeling, because it's like, it wasn't my fault. What was done to me was not my fault. I was a child. And so with my parents, kind of like, I started talking to them around that point, because they're like, something's not right. So I finally was able to open up to my parents and to be like, I feel these things, and I'm not pure. Like, what man is gonna want me, because I'm used goods. Like, that's kind of like what I felt as a teenager. And so the biggest thing to my parents have always allowed me the space to speak when I want to speak. It's like there was never any rush. You know, I was able to process what I needed to process. They always reassured me that they were there when I was ready to talk. And then at some point I was ready to talk. Try to think other. I feel like another thing is just preparing me for the triggers in the future. I know that my mom went through a lot of things as a young kid in life. She went through a lot of things in life, and she basically told me, she goes, you know, you listen, you are because I had kids at this point. She says, you know, when your kids get certain age, especially around the age of your abuse, like you could be very, very triggered and feel a lot of things because you're gonna realize the age you were, you know, compared to the age that your children are, and you're gonna realize like how could anybody do something to kids so little, you know, and to harm a child. And so I felt like I was prepared for those things. I wasn't shocked by it. I knew what to expect. And I feel like that was the greatest thing they could have done for me, is prepare me for things so I would not be shocked by them or triggered by them, or extremely traumatized, because it is a big trigger. It can be very, very big, very, very triggering for people. Another thing she prepared me for, when we were starting to be able to speak to our biological parent, and I say parent because I would never speak to my stepfather for what he did to me, but she prepared me and my sister for not my stepmom, but from my biological mom. So what she basically told us our entire childhood, like I'm talking about our entire childhood, she would say things like, your biological mom loved you. She loved you the best way that she could. You know, she, you know, did the best that she could. And, you know, broken people. She's very broken. She's a broken person. And so she may make promises to you that she more than likely will not fulfill. She'll say things, you know, like, oh, like, you know, mother-daughter things. You get your hopes up. My mom did not want me to get heartbroken again. And because it took them so long to reach me emotionally, they were really, really scared for me, that I wasn't going to be able to handle it. So she prepared me pretty well, I believe, for disappointment when it came to like my biological parent. I wasn't like, so when she came in with promises, if she didn't show up when she said she was going to show up, I was unbothered. When she did show up, I was happy. Like, this is great, you know? So when she at some point failed me, which she has, it was never a big thing for me, you know? Because in my mind, she's not my parent, you know? She's not my mom. You know what I'm saying? My adoptive mom is my mom. So it's like, she kind of felt like an acquaintance or like a sister or like, you know, it's like a family member, but that you're not that close to. So I felt like because she prepared us in a way for the realistic expectations, I didn't go into this situation with high hopes that like, oh, like we're gonna be like right, like we pick up where you left off, and you know, like, you know, how I'm sure how she felt as a mom, being like, oh, this is my daughter, you know, and my daughter could be with her mom, and it's just like, it's never gonna be that. You know, it's never gonna be that. That time is gone, you know. So I felt like I was never shocked by what if she didn't show up for me. It was never an issue for me. But also I wasn't as close to her as my other siblings were. So I feel like things definitely hit them harder. In a way, like, 'cause I didn't really remember like as much as like they did about life. I don't know how, it must have just obviously blocked a lot of it out. I just don't remember honestly that much. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I think my parents have ever done for me. And I feel like if I hadn't had that realistic expectation in life, I would have been hurt really early on. I've always been like a bit sensitive, I guess. Like I was hard, like I was holding on hard to like not feeling anything. I was very numb when they got me. I once that last adoption didn't go through, I remember just kind of shutting down, being like, no one's ever hurting me ever again, ever again, and I shut down completely. I I would do crazy things to just feel something, because one thing I couldn't deal with was another rejection. I couldn't deal with another loss. I couldn't deal with anything else. And so it took a long time for me to be able to open up and feel somewhat normal. So as I became a teenager, you know, obviously you butt heads with your parents and stuff like that. And I did the same. And I moved out at 19, but it wasn't like it wasn't like a bad like move out or anything like that. I just felt like my parents were so protective of me because they were so worried for me because I'd been through so much, and they just really wanted to protect me, that they didn't want me to like move out. But I also felt like I couldn't grow. I couldn't learn to be an adult because I was being coddled. I was being coddled so much, and I couldn't really like do anything. You know, I couldn't really live. So I ended up moving out. But it was the best thing for us because once I was out, like our relationship got like 100 times better. It just felt so much more normal, I guess. But like people ask me all the time, like, you know, how are you as normal as you are? And I just really just equate it to the beginning of things, of just having parents that allow me the space to just not be okay, I guess. And like I said, preparing me for like the realistic things and not just like dreams. I just knew that like I was prepared for the worst, but ready to accept the best. And that helped a lot. But also when my kids were younger, I put myself into therapy. And the reasoning is I had somewhat of like an emotional, almost like detachment kind of thing. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it's just like, it's almost like when I was little, I never had the mommy phase, right? I never had that feeling of like, I need my mom, and my mom was going to show up for me and make sure that I was okay, and hug me and hold me and have that, like, that comfort. You know, I never had that I can even recall. I never had that security and that safety, and it's just something I never had. And so when I would get to a point where, you know, like my oldest would throw a massive fit, and then all of a sudden he'd want a hug, and I'm like, you would just throw a massive fit and now you want me to like love on you. And it would just throw me off. And I'm just like, I didn't want to be touched. And I'm like, what is that? You know, because I didn't have that. You know, by the time my parents got me, I was way too old for that. So I put myself into therapy so I could understand why I felt that way, because it's not normal, you know. And then my therapist basically told me, she goes, you know, when that happens, that is just his way of reassuring that even when he's acting horrible, or he's not behaving well, that you still love him. And it just made sense. And so I knew I would look at it at that viewpoint, not that, oh, well, he's just being a brat. And, you know, I felt like I can kind of start to like almost heal like my inner child, while also, you know, dealing with mine. And so with my own child, and so that was like those kind of things. So I did therapy for years. I learned how to speak up because I've always been a people pleaser, and I hate it. I hate it. Like I always feel like so much anxiety about people being like not being upset with me, because I always have good intentions, and I feel like if I came off as like I didn't have good intentions, like I felt extremely guilty. you know, and like I just want people, I want everyone to be okay. That's kind of how I feel. I want everyone to be okay, and but I also like have things that I don't want to do, or I'm uncomfortable, or I don't want to do this, don't want to do that. And when I state that I don't want to do something, I feel like someone's gonna be upset at me, and then I'm gonna have to like, you know, then I feel bad for having my own needs. You know, so I'll burn myself. I started learning how to do self-care. I had to really let myself go, in a way, like emotionally. I was struggling a lot. I could barely do anything slightly emotional, and even like a commercial, and I would be in tears. I wasn't speaking up in anything in life, and so it would weigh on me, and it would just sit in my stomach. I would just be anxious in my stomach, and I'd be extremely anxious, and I wouldn't be able to sleep and stuff. It was like a lot that I was like dealing with. So my therapist started helping me like learning how to self-care, and you know, especially when you become a mom, like you lose a lot of like everything that you like because you're taking care of somebody else. You don't have time for your own needs. Yeah, I started doing my self-care. So I got this massive bean bag. I was like, I'm not gonna feel like a marshmallow in a Hot Wheel. Like I want a big bean bag that I feel small in. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm a big girl. But yeah. So I started doing more self-care things. I developed a self-care routine for bedtime. I just started doing a lot more things to make sure that I was okay because I was really struggling. And I did therapy for like, honestly, I've had a therapist technically for like, I don't know, 4 years or something, maybe more. Yeah, probably about 4 years I've had a therapist. I don't see her much now because I've done like a lot of work, and so I got through most of like the very traumatic things. So I don't like make appointments like that anymore. Like I miss her sometimes, and I'll make an appointment and like update her on life. But I don't really like see her much anymore. Probably should still though, because you know we all need something. But yeah, so I feel like when it comes to most things in my life, I have definitely healed quite a bit. My nose tickles. Let's go let that kind of like cool down a little bit. Ooh, hot. So, but yeah, I feel like when it comes to most things in my life, I feel like I've actually healed pretty well. But it does help to know that you need help so that you can show up best for your family. And I still struggle with things, you know, but I feel like I struggle with less of like the trauma that I went through as a child, but I struggle more with, so okay, how do I explain this? My biggest struggle is not necessarily like the actual trauma that I went through as a child, but the defense mechanisms that I built to protect myself from those traumas. So it's like I had like almost like a wall, you know, and so it's harder to break those patterns than it is to deal with the trauma in that way. So I still struggle with those to this day. Like I just try to make an effort to like not do those things, but you know, it's life. We make mistakes, and we definitely have to start somewhere. But I have like, you know, me and my husband are happy. You know, we got our 2 little boys that are thriving. They're doing really well in school. We bought our first home last year, end of last year. No, October of 2023. I think it's a new year. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with this hair. At this point, I'm not like. Yeah, we bought our first home end of October. The boys are doing well in school. I am back home now, so I get to just still work on my home and my kids, my family, and focus on them. But also, I get time during the day to do what I like to do, like this channel that I really love. So I am very grateful and I'm very blessed to have the family that I have. And no, not no one's perfect, but I feel like we've done pretty well to be a family and be close and take care of each other the best way that we can. And I am grateful that I'm here today and I'm not super messed up, which definitely could have been a thing. We even talked about us as sisters like writing a book. I feel like that'd be like be really cool, to kind of just be able to like have our own things, you know. I just don't know how much I'd want to put in there because it's kind of traumatic, but yeah. So anyways, that's my life is definitely interesting. I don't know, but yeah, that is kind of roughly what I mean by like have I healed. I feel like a lot of ways I feel like I'm functioning pretty well as an adult overall. I have my struggles, but that's just life, and we pushing forward. You know, we acknowledge that we are blessed and we are grateful, and being grateful for the small things in life. I do notice that that helps me a lot too when I've noticed things like small things. I remember my water heater or my furnace kicked on and I was like, I am so grateful that my furnace works. You know, it's an old furnace, okay? You know, you have to be grateful for the little things, and then you'll learn to be grateful in big things easier. And when hard times come, you'll be able to still have things to be grateful for. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my videos. Bye.
Hey, young Russell, you made this?